Welcome back, Deep Divers. Today we're going to plunge headfirst into Charlotte Bronte's world, specifically her masterpiece, Jane Eyre.
Oh, excellent choice.
We've got some insightful literary analysis to guide us and, of course, some of the most powerful passages from the book itself.
Sounds like a real treat.
To kick things off, I think it's amazing that Bronte created such a powerful and enduring work in such a short lifespan.
Right. She died at only 38, yet Jane Eyre continues to resonate with readers centuries later. It's incredible.
One thing that strikes me is that rawness, that honesty that you just don't see in a lot of writing from that era. I mean, our source material even mentions some critics finding her style a bit disconcerting, like she's intentionally blurring the lines between reality and fiction.
It's true. And, it's a tightrope walk that many artists grapple with, drawing so heavily from their own lives.
Yeah.
You see it all the time. Painters, musicians, writers, labeled as troubled or tormented. It's almost as if we expect great art to be born from suffering.
It's a fascinating thought, isn't it? Do you think that's part of what makes certain works stand the test of time? That connection between personal struggle and artistic expression?
Absolutely. I think Bronte's ability to tap into those universal emotions, those raw experiences, that's what allows her work to transcend time and connect with readers on such a deep level, even today.
Makes sense. And speaking of raw experiences, let's talk about that Red Room.
Ah, yes, the Red Room.
Not just a spooky setting, but a reflection of Jane's confined existence, almost like a metaphor.
Precisely.
The locked door, those heavy curtains, the secret drawer. Bronte really knew how to create an unsettling atmosphere. But it goes beyond just Gothic elements, doesn't it?
It embodies those limitations placed on Jane as a young orphan in such a rigid Victorian society. The room itself is a physical confinement, a punishment, but it also symbolizes those emotional and societal constraints she faces throughout her life.
And then there's young Jane's imagination, so vivid. Remember how she sees a real spirit in the mirror? And she even imagines Mr. Reed's ghost coming back to punish his cruel wife.
Right, it becomes this space where her fears and fantasies collide, blurring the lines between what's real and what's imagined.
Exactly.
And that blurring, that's crucial to understanding Bronte's work. Jane's imagination isn't just an escape, it's a source of strength. It allows her to transcend her circumstances and envision a different future.
A way to cope, almost.
Exactly.
And those circumstances really shape her, don't they? From the Reeds at Gateshead to the harsh conditions at Lowood Institution, she experiences so much cruelty and neglect.
Think about the contrast between those two places. At Gateshead, you have this environment of material wealth, but emotional poverty. John Reed's bullying, Mrs. Reed's hostility, even the servants treat her like an outsider. It's bound to warp your sense of self-worth.
And then Lowood, with its supposed emphasis on moral and spiritual development, but it's all rigid discipline, deprivation, even public humiliation.
Oh, absolutely.
Like that burnt porridge incident where Jane is falsely accused of being a liar.
Yeah. It's a striking example of the injustice she faces. And what's remarkable is that she doesn't become hardened or cynical. Those experiences fuel her desire for something better, for genuine connection, for intellectual freedom. It's incredible.
It's true. And instead of breaking her, it's like those hardships forge this incredible independence and unwavering moral compass within Jane.
And that's what equips her to navigate the complexities of Thornfield Hall and, of course, her relationship with the enigmatic Mr. Rochester.
Speaking of Thornfield, it's such a captivating setting. Grand, but not overwhelmingly so. There's this air of mystery that hangs over the place.
Oh, for sure. Even Mrs. Fairfax, the housekeeper, admits to knowing very little about Mr. Rochester.
Right.
Bronte masterfully creates this sense of anticipation and unease from the moment Jane steps foot in Thornfield. Mr. Rochester's sudden departures, his avoidance of the house, those strange sounds from the attic.
It all hints at something lurking beneath the surface. Like we're being invited alongside Jane to uncover those secrets hidden within those walls.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's that first encounter between Jane and Mr. Rochester.
Oh, so unconventional.
Gruff demeanor, probing questions, constantly testing her. It sets up this complex power dynamic right from the start. He's the wealthy master, she's the young governess.
But even in those early interactions, there's a hint of vulnerability, something deeper beneath that gruff exterior.
Oh, absolutely. And Jane, despite her initial apprehension, you can sense she's drawn to his intellect, his unconventional nature, his undeniable charisma.
It definitely defies those societal norms and expectations at the time. There's a spark there. What did you say?
Oh, without a doubt. Their connection challenges those traditional roles of courtship and romance. Jane isn't just sitting around waiting to be rescued. She's intelligent, independent, and she's not afraid to push back against Mr. Rochester's assumptions.
I love that about her. And just as things start heating up between Jane and Rochester, in sweeps Miss Ingram.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful, accomplished, seemingly everything Jane is not.
The epitome of what Victorian society valued in a woman. Elegant, graceful, seemingly the perfect match for a man like Rochester. But Bronte peels back that polished surface, doesn't she?
She does.
Reveals a shallowness, even a cruelty, that contrasts sharply with Jane's genuineness.
It's almost like Bronte is using these two women, Jane and Miss Ingram, as a way to explore those societal pressures.
Absolutely.
On one hand, you have Miss Ingram effortlessly embodying the ideal Victorian woman, but lacking any real depth.
And then there's Jane, constantly underestimated, overlooked because she doesn't fit those conventional standards of beauty or social grace.
But it's her unconventionality, that intelligence, that fierce independence that makes her so compelling.
Right. And Brontë seems to be saying that true worth comes from embracing your individuality.
Not conforming.
Exactly. Having a strong moral compass, pursuing knowledge, valuing genuine connection over superficial charm.
And how Jane reacts to Miss Ingram's presence is so important. She has moments of self-doubt, of course. But her pain stems from something deeper than jealousy, doesn't it?
It does. She understands Mr. Rochester's motivations.
She sees right through Miss Ingram's act and recognizes that Rochester isn't truly in love.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it? Seeing the man she loves settle for a relationship devoid of depth and authenticity.
It's like Brontë is exploring a different kind of unrequited love. Not because the person is unattainable, but because they're choosing a path that isn't true to their feelings.
Right. It's a good point. It's a reminder that sometimes the most painful experiences teach us the most valuable lessons about ourselves and about the love we deserve.
And those lessons become even more profound when the truth about Rochester's past comes to light.
Oh, for sure. The interrupted wedding, the revelation of Bertha Mason, one of the most iconic moments in English literature.
Brontë is a master at building suspense. Those eerie events at night, the arrival of Mr. Mason, that unsettling feeling that something is deeply wrong.
Pure Gothic brilliance. And then the truth comes crashing down. Mr. Rochester, harboring this huge secret, a wife locked away in the attic.
It changes everything.
Throws everything we thought we knew about him into question, forces us to confront the complexities of his character.
And for Jane, it's a moral earthquake.
Absolutely.
Faced with this impossible choice, stay with the man she loves, knowing he's deceived her, or stay true to her principles, even if it breaks her own heart.
And it's a testament to her strength, her integrity, that she chooses the latter.
She can't compromise her sense of self-worth, her morality, even for love.
It's a powerful act of self-preservation.
She's not just running from a bad situation. She's rejecting societal expectations.
Expectations that would have had her stay as Rochester's mistress.
Her flight from Thornfield marks a huge turning point in the novel.
Cast out into the world with nothing but the clothes on her back and her own inner strength.
Talk about a test of resilience, hardship, despair, nearly starving.
She goes through it all.
But never gives up on herself, on her belief in a better future.
This is where those early trials truly pay off.
Right.
That resilience she developed at Gateshead and Lowood becomes her lifeline.
It's amazing.
And then her arrival at Moor House opens up a whole new chapter.
The River siblings. Such a contrast to everyone she's met before.
St. John, Diana, Mary, each representing a different path.
St. John with his strict morality and ambition.
A life of religious devotion, self-denial.
Diana with her intellect and independence.
An unconventional path for a woman.
And Mary, all kindness and practicality.
A model of domestic contentment.
St. John poses a particularly interesting challenge for Jane. He sees her potential, encourages her intellectual and spiritual growth.
But his approach to love and relationships, so different from what Jane craves.
Right. He views marriage as a means to an end. Shared goals, duty, rather than passionate love.
And while she admires his dedication to his missionary work, she can't deny the lack of genuine connection.
It's like she's trying to convince herself that a life of service and purpose can fill that void left by Rochester.
But
deep down, she knows true happiness requires something more.
It's another reminder that we can't force ourselves into molds that don't fit our true nature.
No matter how noble those molds might seem.
And just when it seems like Jane might settle into that life at Moor House, fate steps in.
That mysterious call in the night, drawing her back to Thornfield. Gives me chills just thinking about it.
Makes you wonder about those unseen forces in our lives, doesn't it?
It really does.
It speaks to the power of connection, even when separated by distance and circumstance, that pull toward those who hold a special place in our hearts.
And when Jane returns to Thornfield, it's not the grand estate she remembers.
A dilapidated ruin, a shell of its former self.
The fire that destroyed Thornfield, such a powerful symbol.
The destruction caused by Rochester's past, the consequences of those secrets.
And Rochester himself, changed by that night.
Oh, absolutely.
His sight gone, his hand mangled, that proud demeanor replaced with a newfound humility.
The fire stripped away the facade, the secrets, the societal expectations.
He's not that brooding Byronic hero anymore.
A man humbled by experience, more open, more vulnerable.
And Jane, despite everything, finds herself drawn back to him.
Their reunion, charged with so many emotions.
Relief, sorrow, forgiveness, and that undeniable spark of love that has endured through it all. It's interesting, though, isn't it? It's not a simple happy ending.
Oh, definitely not.
Rochester, he's still carrying those scars.
Both physically and emotionally.
His blindness, the disfigurement, constant reminders of that fire.
And the consequences of his choices.
But there's a different side to him now, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah.
A tenderness, a vulnerability.
It's like the fire refined him.
Stripped away that arrogance.
Leaving a more authentic self.
And that's what makes their reconnection so powerful.
Right. She sees him fully, flaws and all.
It's not about some romanticized version of Rochester anymore.
And she chooses to love him not in spite of his suffering, but because of it.
It's a profound statement about love, isn't it?
It really is.
True love. Not finding someone perfect, but accepting them completely.
Imperfections and all.
Choosing to build a life together based on respect and understanding.
And recognizing that suffering can be transformative.
They've both endured so much pain.
It's shaped them into who they are.
More compassionate, more understanding.
They're capable of love.
And then there's Adele, finally finding a true home with them.
A place where she's loved and accepted without judgment.
It adds another dimension to the story, doesn't it?
It does.
That idea of family, of belonging.
Creating a chosen family.
Not bound by blood, but by love and shared experience.
A reminder that family can take many forms.
And that sometimes the most meaningful connections are those we choose.
Beautifully put.
So the novel ends with this sense of peace, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Contentment. Jane and Rochester married their chosen family.
Finding happiness after so much turmoil.
They've navigated love, loss, societal pressures.
And come out stronger, more connected.
Jane's story is a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit.
It really is.
And the enduring power of hope. A reminder that even in the face of adversity, we can create our own happiness.
Find meaning and purpose.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into Jane Eyre, I'm curious, what do you think about Jane's choices? Did she make the right decision in going back to Rochester?
That's the question every reader has to wrestle with, isn't it?
It is.
There's no easy answer. Brontë forces us to confront those complexities.
Love, forgiveness, second chances.
Exactly.
And that's the beauty of Jane Eyre.
A novel that keeps us talking, challenging our perspectives generations later.
It makes you think about the human heart, about relationships, about what it means to live authentically.
Absolutely. If there's one thing I hope listeners take away, it's that Jane Eyre is so much more than just a love story.
It is.
Social justice, the search for identity, breaking free from societal constraints.
It's a story that speaks to those deep human longings.
Offers a timeless message of hope and resilience.
And that's a perfect note to end on. Just Eyre, a novel that begs to be reread, reinterpreted, discussed. It stays with you.
It really does.
And who knows, maybe this deep dive has inspired you to explore Bronte's world further. There's always something new to discover in her work.
I couldn't agree more.